Welcome, everyone. We are so happy that you're joining us. I'm so pleased to introduce our guest, Damo Mitchell. Damo is the director of the Lotus Qigong School of Taoist Arts and the founder of the Internal Arts Academy online. Welcome.
Hello, how's it going, Sharon? You right?
Yeah, I'm
Thank you
good.
for
I'm
having me
happy to
here.
see you again.
Yeah,
And
what's
I,
it been?
I
Six
love
months?
connecting across the globe like this.
Yes. Yeah, big distances. Yeah, I'm out here in Bali at the moment.
So, Damo, you have lived the dedicated life of a sincere spiritual seeker, and you've traveled all over Asia in your quest to understand energy cultivation and spiritual development. So let's start with what propelled this journey, and then if you can give us a little idea about your definition of qi and how and why we should cultivate it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. I mean, the I suppose the blunt answer for going out into Asia was really what I couldn't find what I wanted in the West, I suppose, which things have changed a little bit these days. More and more knowledge has come over, so I think that situation is very different. But um, even up until a number of years ago, I suppose, alchemy specifically was very, very difficult to find in the West. Qigong was already here, Tai Chi was already over, but alchemy was still quite difficult. And that's really what I've been looking for as much as anything when I've been out here in Asia trying to find teachers. But what I didn't expect was it's also quite difficult to find alchemy teachers out here in Asia as well. So part of the reason I've spent so many years is because I've been following leads and trying to track people down, and it's handshakes and introductions, and then somebody is difficult to find, and so on and so on. So it's been a lot of hunting around, but a rewarding journey. Even the dead ends have been interesting. I mean, there's a learning process there as well, of course. But that's that's an exploration that carries on. It hasn't finished yet. I don't know. I said that I'd be in Asia till 30. I don't know why. I kind of had in my mind that there should be some kind of stop point when I should come back and get on with a normal life. But then that extended to 35, and then that extended to 40. And I don't know, I've given up capping this time in Asia now. I've given up. I'll just keep hunting till I can get to the bottom of all these arts. You asked what chi. You asked about chi. Well, how is it important? Did you say or?
Well, how would you describe qi
Oh, okay.
and then how and why should we cultivate it? I mean, the whole your
Yeah,
whole
sure.
journey is all about finding out about it. How
Yeah,
to
sure.
use it, how to cultivate it, how to transform it, how to raise it to a higher frequency. So, uh, just just what is your personal definition of it, and what have been your questions about it that
Okay.
you have answered, and what questions have you still not answered?
Oh, okay. Well, it's the eternal question, isn't it? How to define qi. I mean, normally when you pick up any qigong book or Chinese medicine book, as you know, it generally says qi is something that can't be defined. But then still we try to discuss it. But I think that, in my opinion, there are strict definitions for qi. Actually, it's just that the way we define things in the West is a little tricky. And I came to the conclusion that the difference was, in the West, it's very difficult for us to accept that something can be a thing and be something abstract at the same time. We tend to, something is either abstract or it's definite. So we get sort of very hung up on these. Whereas in Asia, as far as I can make out after all these years of being here, there's no such contradiction. Something can be a thing and a no thing at the same time, and it doesn't make any difference. So when we're using the word qi, sometimes they do mean something very, very specific, and this will depend upon the context. So because we were talking about Qigong specifically, then they're normally talking about three factors, I would say, three factors. I'll try and do this a brief way. So the yang aspect of qi, in my opinion, is as much as anything the electrical energy that flows through the nervous system, primarily within qigong. Specifically, that's usually what they're referring to. The yin aspect of qi is normally a kind of magnetism that organizes that energy. So most of the traditions in Qigong or Neigong that go very, very deep, very, very deep into what is possible, some of the things the masters do is crazy, are really playing with this relationship between the body's magnetism and electricity to a very, very high level. But that's not to take away the kind of esoteric aspect of it, because electricity and magnetism are only how we experience it, is what it feels like, especially if someone issues it into you or something. But it has very big connections to our mind, our psychology, our spiritual aspect of our being, and so on and so on. But then there's a third aspect, and that's what complicates it, is the third aspect of qi is really the process that anything goes through. So, for example, I'm going to talk about sinking the qi. So when we talk about sinking the qi, as much as anything, we're talking about what are the actual somatic and transformative processes that the body goes through when we sink very efficiently. So in that way, they're using qi to discuss the experience of something. So that's what I mean. The first two are kind of qi as a thing, and the third one is qi as a no thing, if you get what I mean. And and when you put those together, you kind of have the definition of it in qigong. And then, of course, in the context of other arts, it changes, because qi and feng shui is something very different. Qi and the I Ching is very different. Qi and tai chi is very different. You know, it's very contextually based, I think. So that's the conclusion I've come to anyway, at the moment. A conclusion that's working, but might change in the future.
And so, what is the real purpose of
Oh, okay.
cultivation practice?
Well, it varies person to person, of course. But I think really it's about just the efficiency of the body and the mind's functioning. So it doesn't matter whether you're doing Qigong for health, medical purposes, because to me, if we had to put a really vague description, I suppose, but sickness is just an inefficiency of the body and mind's functioning, would be my kind of working. So the more efficient your body and your mind can function according to qi, you know, these mechanisms that we can control, the more your health increases. And then if we look at it this way, if this is kind of baseline of normal health, strange way of doing it, and this is your kind of health fluctuating up and down over the course of your life according to your kind of baseline potential that you're born with, which varies for all of us, of course. Beyond this kind of level, the kind of normal, your baseline level will become more efficient, more efficient, and more efficient. And this makes the body and the mind more capable of connecting with spiritual practice. So this is why, to me, the basis for spiritual growth, or the basis for health, according to certainly Taoist descriptions, would be how efficiently does your body and your mind function, as much as anything. Whereas some other traditions very much focused on just how does your mind function, or very much a lot of Buddhist traditions are about that. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Some Taoist traditions are about that, especially the ones that were very much focused on the sort of heart fasting aspect of meditation. But those that were focused on alchemy or qigong were really about that, is how can we improve the efficiency of the body's functioning internally and the mind's functioning so that we could access spiritual cultivation. So to me, that's where the kind of development of qi comes in as much as anything.
So, that's very interesting, because I think in the beginning stages of practice, most people are more involved with the level of the body and,
Yeah, sure, yes. Yeah,
the
yeah.
body's health. And
Mhm.
they don't really, unless you really stick to it, you don't really transcend that level for a while. But then
Yeah,
once you do, of course, then it's a whole new ball game.
yeah, of course. Well, I mean, there's two ways into spiritual growth, isn't there? There's the direct path, which I suppose would be the realization of the nature of existence and self, you know, to move into a non-dual state, or whatever. That's the direct path. That's definitely the quickest, but it's not within everybody's capacity, to be perfectly honest. It's not everybody can do that, myself included. I think that's a very small group that can kind of access spirituality that way. Then there's the other way in, which is more what I was talking about, which is the efficiency of the body and the mind's functioning, which actually move you towards a state where then that direct realization can take place. And I think very much Taoism realized that. So some traditions, in my opinion, and get myself in trouble here, are quite elitist. There's some spiritual traditions, because they're very much, here is a very high-ended teaching that only 1 in 100 of you, 1 in 1,000 of you will get, but the rest of the people will benefit a little bit because you'll learn about being compassionate or something, but those very few individuals will achieve an awakening. I think that's quite elitist. That was my encounter of how I encountered some traditions when I was younger. But Taoism, in my opinion, and Qigong takes a slightly different take, because it's very much, look, we can prepare the body, we can prepare the channels, we can fill the body with qi, we can make the mind function more efficiently, and then everybody, hopefully, is moved to a place where then they can access these higher teachings. So that's why it interests me. I like things that are inclusive as much as anything, especially because I'm not in the small category that can access the direct spiritual teachings. So I
I
tried,
think
I failed.
there are very few spiritual prodigies out there.
I think
You
so,
know,
yeah, unfortunately.
yeah. I mean, I I think they're extremely rare, extremely
Yeah,
rare.
yeah. And I think that's a shame that oftentimes I I don't want to sound mean, but sometimes those kind of rare spiritual proteges are then presenting the teachings as if everybody can access them. So sometimes I would encounter teachers when I was younger, because I've been to lots of teachers trying to find people who could help me access these things, and oftentimes their teachings were just completely unattainable by me. There was just no way. I was sitting there hearing this very high-minded thing. Okay, just realize the truth of this, and I couldn't do that. But gradually, as I went through the process of learning to condition the body and change the mind and open the channels and work with the chi, then when I returned to those teachers, then I could access their teachings a little bit better. It gave me more access to what they were doing. And that's really where Qigong came in for me, because I've never really been interested in it as a medical art so much, but as a platform for spiritual progression. That was always what grabbed me as a person.
Wow. So you went through these stages. You just mentioned them very quickly.
Oh, sorry.
Like relax the body, condition the mind. I don't. Could you
Yes.
repeat that, please?
Oh,
That was really good.
yeah. I mean, you have, if you're
Useful.
after useful, if you're after building a platform for spiritual growth, yeah. I mean, the body needs putting into certain states. It's like anything, isn't it? If I'm going to be a weightlifter, which obviously I'm not, that's not my build, but if I'm going to go in and decide to be an Olympic weightlifter, I'm not going to walk in and lift up the biggest weight in the gym. It's going to take me several years, several months, if I use the right chemical enhancements, I suppose, before I can lift those weights. So you have to build your body for that practice. Same for ballet or something like that. You would need a specific body, I would assume. Sumo, that needs a certain body. Qigong's no different. Qigong needs a very specific body that you build in order to practice the art. So these processes you take your body through, well, initially it needs to learn to relax. That's definitely true. You need to move out of fight or flight so that everything can sink and release, and you're in a kind of state of emotional or psychological normality rather than being anxious and stressed. Then the body needs to open. We need more space in it, which is a very literal thing. More space. I mean, the bones literally need to explode out in all directions, like one of those Haynes motor manuals. I don't know if you have those in America. Do you have those in America, or is that a European thing?
I don't know.
Must be a European thing. Anyway, they have these pictures of
Maybe.
cars on the front cover that are kind of exploded, so you can, so almost like a model that's blown up. And always reminds me that's what needs to happen with your body. Then there's a process called the Jinjing, the muscle, tendon, sinew changing. People discuss it as, which some people think is a very specific Buddhist thing, but actually it was kind of stolen by the Taoists as well and incorporated through all of Qigong. And this discusses a very specific process that we take our body through that opens the channels and fills the body with Qi, which really means that you organize the electrical and magnetic energy within the body. And to me, this is what a lot of Qigong was trying to do. This was the process that it was trying to take you through as much as anything.
So you've mentioned several times this process of sinking the chi, and
the Qi must sit.
um, yes, but what does that mean? Where does it go? What
Yeah.
is the purpose of that? Both, in all dimensions, physical, spiritual, maybe even psychic or emotional.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, one thing I've realized about Qi, one thing that's definitely a fact is no matter what you want the Qi to do, it wants to rise. that's just universally what the damn stuff wants to do. That's coming from Chinese medicine perspective. That's coming from a Qigong perspective. It just wants to go up, and it wants, especially because any kind of emotional stress or strain or anything we experience tends to want to make the Qi rise. So I suppose physiologically, we could equate this with moving into the fight or flight way of being as much as anything, because the two definitely go hand in hand. So sinking the Qi is kind of a somatic and practical way to release tension initially so that it moves down through the body, because there is a physical aspect to it. But then after this, very much it's about getting the nervous system to relax. And then after this, the yin and the yang start to organize themselves. So there is a literal movement of this kind of energy down inside the body that then starts to anchor itself towards the abdomen, generally in Qigong, which will start to increase the density in this space. The organizing field of the dantian starts to turn on, and then the Qi starts to gather down here, which essentially means the yang Qi starts to build inside the abdomen. But it all has to be done under that key word, which is sync, under sync. So one error that I made very much when I was younger was I would try to force the Qi down, push it in that dantian, pack it in here, squeeze it down. And then I kind of missed the obvious, I suppose, until a teacher kindly pointed out to me that the key word in there is sync. So essentially, any action we try to do to force the Qi down will cause it to rise, because it's a kind of stress. So we have to learn how to release the body so that there is a sinking of the energy towards the abdominal space. Now, in my opinion, the reason they use the word Qi in this case is the third of my three definitions. So it's the experience that you have of something sinking. What is that thing that sinks? Doesn't matter. Like, it's okay. The actual experience of the sinking is a release of the tension from the upper body, a densening of the abdomen, and then a gradual building of energy inside this abdominal space, as far as I can see anyway.
Thank you for that. I've found in my years of Tai Chi practice that
Yeah.
the concept of sinking is often misinterpreted to
Yeah. Sure.
mean that your chest caves in.
Ah. Yeah.
And, uh, you know, I think that when I was younger, I saw a lot of Tai Chi people doing that, and it disturbed
Yeah.
me. And
Yes.
then after I, learned a lot of other things, different Qigong, and had different Tai Chi masters and everything, I
Yes.
realized that was not sinking.
Yeah. That's
And so I
collapsing.
really appreciate how you just defined what that is, because it's not what people usually think it is.
Can I talk a little on Tai Chi, or is that off topic
Yeah,
too
sure,
much? Or
sure.
I don't know if it's within the realms of what we're
Oh,
talking about.
don't worry. You talk
Or if
about
it's
whatever you want. I love
sure,
it.
because the sinking in Tai Chi is actually a little different from Qigong. Very similar. But I agree with you 100%. The collapse is not right. The sinking in Tai Chi has an extra component in it, which is essentially that what people are missing, in my opinion, is the skeleton stays up. So
Right.
the skeleton stays up. So sometimes people say to kind of stack the skeleton down, stack the skeleton on top of each other, which to me suggests a kind of gravitational closing of the joints. So to me, I tell people to float the skeleton up, but everything that's not skeleton sinks. So when everything that's not skeleton sinks, then you don't lose your posture. And then you get a stretch between the muscles and the bones. And that stretch is what starts to build the lines that the power moves through. So this is where Tai Chi is the same as Qigong. It just has that extra ingredient. And if
Yeah.
the people do that, they don't collapse, and then they don't sort of compress their lungs and close the
Right.
cavity or anything
Right.
like that.
I usually call that an energetic stretch in my classes, an
Yeah,
energetic stretch,
yeah,
because,
definitely.
there's this whole other thing where a lot of people now who come to Tai Chi and Qigong have been yoga practitioners.
Okay,
And,
yeah, sure.
in yoga, people are taught to just do this, maximum extension. Sometimes they
Yeah,
lock their joints, they use their muscles. And so the concept of stretching is
yes,
very different.
yeah, completely diametrically opposed to each other. Actually, the yoga stretch and
Yeah.
the Tai Chi
Yeah.
Qigong stretch, very different angles. Yoga very
Mhm.
much because it was about originally was you were stretching to be able to sit properly, right? I mean, that was its emphasis,
Yeah.
where the stretching in Tai Chi was about mobilizing the Jin.
Right. Right. Well, this is fascinating. So, um, if you could like say in, just a few sentences,
Sure.
uh, what you're going to teach us now about sinking the chi,
Oh, okay.
and then it would be wonderful for you to share your practice with us.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Sinking the chi. I mean, there's various ways to do it. Some it can be done through movement. Um, and I think normally that's what people are more used to. I think moving exercises in Qigong. So what I'm going to show is the alchemical way, if you like, from alchemical sitting meditation, or one way, one method, of course, because there's lots of different ways that will assist in releasing the chi from the upper body and taking it down to the lower body. So it's basically a preparatory exercise that people do within dragon gates like Longmen Pai alchemy. It's one that I had to do a lot of because my chi would not sink. It refused for a really long time because I was a little bit of an overly cerebral person, to say the least. So I had to spend a lot of hours doing it. So I'll show people this exercise, but in my opinion, it's probably one of the most efficient. I think it's the most efficient way for sinking chi that I've come across anyway for seated work, for seated practice. So I'll give
Uh-huh.
people a hand with that.
Wonderful. So let's do it.
Okay, so to begin with, sinking the chi. As with all seated work, I just want to be comfortable. So I sit like this, but if you prefer to sit on a chair, that's fine. It's absolutely okay. Just make sure if you're sitting on a chair, you're a little bit towards the front of the chair, so you're not leaning back into it. You want your spine upright and unsupported by anything physical. Then what I want to do is make sure at the beginning, posturally, that I can't feel the weight of my head or my shoulders in my body. So what I mean by that is if I lean forward a little bit, now the weight of my head and my shoulders is in the muscles of my back and I'm supporting it. I don't want this. I want to feel light. So I want to adjust the skeleton, the head and the shoulders, the spine, until I feel like there's no weight through my body. This is very important for the sinking because if there's any gripping of the muscles unnecessary to hold you up, the chi cannot sink. So you must align the body correctly. Then we need to release the chest. So sometimes people talk about rounding the chest, and people misunderstand and think you're supposed to curve the chest like this. But round is used kind of symbolically within Taoism, confusingly, I know, because round implies a space, it implies spaciousness. So whenever they use the shape of round, they mean to empty something. So to do this, I sit my shoulders properly, and then I take Tian Tu, which is this soft point at the base of your neck, suprasternal notch, yeah, right here above the sternum. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to release any tension that exists in the muscles here. So it's just a mental exercise. I just release and let go. And then I take that behind the sternum bone and I release the tension behind the sternum bone as well. So if you're practicing on your own, you can take a bit longer and just let go of any bound up tension here. What will happen after a while is essentially the rib cage and the diaphragm will reorganize themselves a little bit as you release the tension, and this will empty or round the chest so that nothing is held high. Tian-tu and the sternum are the control point for the chest in alchemy. They control all of the tension here. So I must let go because lots of tension is built up here. Then to start the practice, I always just sit and just do nothing, just breathe. Let the body breathe in and out through the nose for a little while till it becomes comfortable. Just forget the day, forget anything else. Let your breath sink low, become comfortable in this position. Just for a couple more breaths. Okay, so we're going to move through some very simple postures. Okay, I'm going to bring the hands up. I'm going to put them here, just above my eyebrows, yeah? With the palms facing down. Don't face them in towards you. Face them straight down towards the floor. Make sure that you haven't picked up the sternum. This is very, very important because a lot of people, when they lift up their arms, they'll pick up the sternum and the tian tu. We've got to keep that just relaxed, okay? Then the palms face straight down. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch between the bones in my hands. So you've got these long bones through your palm, and you've got the elastic tissue between them. And I'm going to widen the palm. Okay. This will cause the fingers to stretch, but that will happen incidentally. The most important thing is the palm. So what I do is I widen this. I stretch it out. And this will help Lao Gong to open. Essentially, after a while of doing this, the qi will move through the nerves to the palms so that Lao Gong becomes active. And I hold this position here above my eyebrows. And then I apply my awareness or my attention to the entire of the body. Just listen through the body. Just allow the body to breathe in a relaxed fashion, releasing the sternum, releasing Tian Tu. Now, what Lao Gong does, this is what is very important for Qigong, is wherever Lao Gong faces, it's kind of like a signpost to the Qi, a clue for where we want it to go. So if I open Lao Gong, it will direct the Qi downwards. So for example, if I were to sit like this is not going to help the Qi sink. Definitely not. But if I turn the hands like this, it's kind of a clue because the Qi is a bit dim. Okay, it's like, I want you to go down. So I don't push it. I just hold my hands, stretch out Lao Gong so that the signpost for the Qi is on. And then I continue to pay attention to my breathing, to my body, sorry. And I breathe in a relaxed fashion. And then gradually after a while, there is a release of tension around the chest and an increase of density in the abdomen. So if you were doing this for longer, you could maybe set a timer and sit here for 10 minutes, 20 minutes or whatever. Or you can practice organically once you get good till the density increases in the abdomen. Then what I do, once that density is there, is I move the hands to the second position, which is at the height of the clavicles, the collarbones here. This here. I do the same. So I allow the spine to stay upright. Let as much tension go from the rest of the body as you can. Release Tian Tu, this soft point at the base of your neck. Yeah. And then release behind the sternum, stretching open Lao Gong, the center of the palm, spreading the palm. Every time I move in any practice, anytime I change postures, I always reestablish the qualities because I'm far from perfect. So every time I move, all of the principles fall apart. So we just double check that you're sustaining that quality. And then I listen to the body and I continue breathing. Might take you 10 minutes, might take you 5 minutes, but there's an increase in density in the abdominal cavity. It's not swelling, like if you've had a bad meal or something. It's just that the abdomen feels starting to feel thicker. And the more it does, the more this starts to draw everything down from the upper body, which will move you out of fight or flight, relax you, and bring the qi towards the dantian. Just play with this posture, listening to the body, paying attention to the experiences, what it feels like. Don't try to guide the qi with your mind, because the act of guiding the qi with the mind causes it to rise a little bit, because it's a bit too assertive. Think of qi as being really rebellious, which is even a term we use in Chinese medicine actually, but the qi is rebellious. It doesn't like to be told what to do. So we just have to listen, breathe, and give it the clue of where we want it to go with Lao Gong. Then we move on again. Down to the diaphragm. Very, very common position in alchemy. You'll see it in lots of their artwork. This is where all the beginners in alchemy and the long men sit, in the long men Pai tradition. I had to sit like this for hour after hour after hour. Stretching open Lao Gong. Don't face it towards the abdomen or anything, just straight down. The qi inside your body will start to copy after a while and go down. Allow the body to breathe. Give it your attention, give it your awareness. And this will cause the qi to be guided down, qi tian dantian, qi to sink in towards the dantian, towards the abdomen. Remember, no intention. The only thing that is intending, I suppose you could argue, is the stretching of the palm. My palms are active. They are not slack. They are active because I need to send the instruction to the body for where the chi goes. The relaxation kind of releases the chi from its prison, wherever it's trapped in the body, trapped in your tension, trapped in the nerves, trapped wherever, so that it's mobile. And then the opening of Lao Gong shows this mobile chi where to go, down towards the abdomen, down towards the dantian. Just a couple more breaths like this. Don't try to control the breathing, just let it happen of its own accord. The body knows best. The more the chi sinks, the more you move out of a stress state, and the more long and relaxed the breath becomes anyway. So, and it'll take different times depending on how long you've trained or your experience or whatever, person to person. But for me now, the abdomen is getting nice and thick, starting to build down there. So now what I do is I move to the final position, where I move to something called Bao Yuan, where I turn the hands over. You'll have seen this posture many times in meditation, statues even, where I place one hand on top of the other. Don't worry about your gender side. It doesn't matter, especially not in the early stages of training. Put whichever hand is comfortable on top, and then take the thumbs and squeeze them together with a little bit of power, almost as if I was holding a piece of paper. And if you tried to tug it, it would be a little bit tricky. You want a little bit of power in your mudra. Then I place this in front of the dantian. And this is called Bao Yuan, which means to kind of guard and enwrap, because what it does is it contains the chi, contains it within that space and guides it in towards the dantian. And this time my mind can come out of the body and I just let it go down and reside behind the mudra, behind the hand position inside my abdominal space. You find that will kind of happen on its own after a while anyway, in my experience. Your mind will move there. Make sure you keep a little bit of power in the hand shape. Don't relax it, don't fall asleep. And again, just allow the body to breathe in and out through the nose. And this will guide the sunk chi towards the dantian, where it will be contained within that space. Then here you can sit for as long as you want. When I was practicing, I would start by going through the postures, and then I would get to here, and it would normally take me an hour and a half or something like that to go through it. And then gradually, as I became more comfortable, it extended out, I ended up sitting for crazy lengths of time. But that should be an organic evolution of your seated practice. You shouldn't force it. Don't ever force time, just let it open of its own accord. When the body wants to get the chi into the dantian, it will do what it needs to assist you for sitting longer. Just breathe and let the mind rest there. In this sequence, above the eyebrows, clavicles or collarbones, diaphragm, and then this little mudra Bao Yuan while you're sat breathing. Like I say, is one of the preliminary or foundation practice that pretty much all alchemists go through within many of the traditions to help just bring the chi out of the upper body, take you out of a stress state, bring the energy down to the dantian to prepare you for the other work. The advantage of the chi going down to the dantian is the more that's there, the bigger battery, and then the more that chi will mobilize around the body, but it will mobilize around the body in a very ordered fashion rather than chaotic. It will mobilize as it's supposed to, which is why we want this base. Part of the advantage of using the hand shapes is that I don't have to use my mind to lead anything. So my mind can just relax and just pay attention and be very calm. Lao Gong will guide the qi. And then when we're done, I bring the hands out to the knees. And then I just mobilize the body a little bit. So I can turn my spine or roll my shoulders or whatever it is you prefer. Whatever you like, just moving around the joints, just to make sure nothing got stuck. If anything needs to move in the body, it can. So you can go through that practice like that in short bursts, 15 minutes or something, whenever you want, several times a day or once a day or whatever, to help the qi go down. Or if you have longer, like I could say, you can extend it out into a longer practice as long as you want, as long as what feels right for you to get the qi to go down to this place. Okay, thank you.
It was beautiful. Thank you. I really felt the chi sinking. I feel more centered. I feel more grounded. And what was wonderful about it was it's really a very simple thing to do that
Yeah,
anyone can do.
yeah,
You
yeah.
don't need to be, young and flexible or old and creaky. Anybody can do this.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
Well, good. I'm glad. I'm glad. Yeah, most of the foundation work for alchemy is it's not that complex. It's not that complex. It's very simple. It's just about applying your attention and knowing that the exercise is really.
Uh-huh. So, Damo, do you have anything that you'd like to share with our audience? Do you have any online course coming up or
Oh,
a
right.
book coming out or, how did people reach you?
Oh, I'm very British. We don't like to advertise ourselves, but we're easy. I'm easy to find. I'm easy to find. Yeah, I teach online and I have a school. If people hunt around for my name, they'll find me. They'll find me.
Uh-huh. Well, thank you so much. That was just great. And I know that people in our audience got a lot out of it because it was simple and profound. So thank you so much for sharing
No, very
your
happy to.
knowledge
And
with us.
no, it's
Yeah,
very nice. Thank you for having me here. It's nice to speak to you again, Sharon.
wonderful.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
thanks to all of you in the audience for listening. And I will see you soon.